Today we will be creating a data table component to display our bank accounts. We will start with a simple implementation using only Shadcn UI components. Later on we will introduce a React table from TanStack for the more powerful features. So we have our data, now it's time to create the table. Let's go to our components, create a new directory for a data table. I called it data table because eventually we will use this data table not only for bank accounts, but for categories and all the other tables within the application. And inside of it, let's create a data table.tsx. And in here we can say const data table, export default data table. It will accept some props. The props will be called data table props. Let's define the props interface. For now, it will be only data of type bank accounts, and it will be an array. So let's import bank account type from types bank accounts. And here let's take the data. So now we can go ahead and install Shadcn UI table. Let's run the cli command. All right, the table was installed. So now we can use it. So let's say return. Let's wrap everything in a div because I want to give a rounded borders for the table. So let's say rounded MD and border. Now we can use the table component which we just installed. So let's import the table from components UI table. Firstly, let's define our table headers. The header will have one table row. In our table, we'll have 3 columns, so we need 3 headers. So let's say table head. The first one will be account number. Second one will be balance. And the last one will be empty, which we will use for row actions a little bit later. So for now, let's just say table head. Let's give also some classes. This one will have a width of 100 pixels. Let's import the missing pieces. Now we can implement the table body itself, where the bank accounts will be displayed. So table body. And inside of it, we need to map through our data. So data.map, bank account. The data will be displayed in a table row. Since we are mapping through the data, we need a key. The key will be bank account.id. Now in each row, we need 3 cells. So let's do table cell, table cell, table cell. The first table cell, as you can see here, is account number. So we can say bank account number. For the second one, we will be displaying the balance. So bank account.balance. And the last table cell is for row actions. So inside of this one, we will say button with the variant of host. Let's also add some class names, import the button, and within the button we want an icon, which is more horizontal. Let's assign some size classes, so h4 width 4. For the table cell styling, let's say that account number should be font medium, and for the balance, let's say it should be positioned right. And the same for the actions icon. All right, we do have some basic table already, so let's go ahead and check how it looks right now. So for that, let's open our bank accounts page. And instead of this span, let's import our data table component, which accepts data prop. We'll pass our bank accounts. All right, let's open the application. There is some hover effects out of the box from the Shadcn UI, but there are some things I would like to fix. So first of all, I would like to make this card border or whatever stretched till the very bottom of the page. So let's give a class name of h full. Also, as you can see, the alignment of the table header and the values itself is a bit off. Like the balance is on the left, the amounts itself are on the right. So let's fix that. Open the data table. So all we are missing is a class name on the balance header. And let's say text right. The last thing is about this balance field. So I would like to have a common component to display the money currency throughout the application, which would format the string in a way I want, like for example adding the dollar sign in the front, or be a red color if it's a negative number. So let's quickly create this component. Let's go to our UI and create money with currency component. So in here we can say const money with currency. Let's export default money with currency. Now this component will accept one prop. So let's define the interface for it. Interface money with currency props. The prop will be amount of type number. So let's grab this prop. So type will be money with currency. Let's grab amount. Now we can say return span. Inside of it we would say amount, but that would again just display the simple number. But I want formatted currency, so let's open our number utils where we will create a function for just that. So let's go to source utils number utils. And here we can define our currency formatter. So const currency formatter. For that we will use built-in JavaScript intel, which has a number format function. The first parameter is a locale. So let's say NUS. And then let's provide an options object. So the style will be currency. The currency itself will be USD. Minimum fraction digits will be 2. And maximum fraction digits again will be 2. So now let's export a new function. Export const format currency, which will accept a value of type number. And it will return currency formatter dot format. And let's pass a value. Let's jump back to our money with currency component. So here instead of just amount, we can import our format currency function and pass the amount as a parameter. Let's import it. One additional thing I want to do with it, I want to color the amount conditionally, meaning I want the amount to be in red color if the amount is a negative number. So let's say class name. For applying conditional class names, we will use CX from the class names. So let's import that. And inside of it, we provide the argument object. We want to apply the text destructive tailwind class if the amount is less than 0. That's basically it for this small money with currency component. So now we can use it in our data table. So in here, instead of bank accounts balance, we want to include our money with currency component. And let's pass amount, which is bank account dot balance. And let's close the component. All right, let's take a look how it looks right now. And as you can see, the dollar sign appeared, the formatting is also being applied. And if I would pass, for example, a negative number, so let's say minus 999, the red color is also applied. Let's revert the change. We can also add a table footer, which will display the total amount of balance for all the bank accounts. So let's do that. Let's firstly calculate the total balance. It will be data.reduce sum and the current bank account. Inside of it, we will say sum plus bank account.balance, and we will start the counting from 0. So this will hold the total balance. Now to add the table footer, we can do that after the table body. So we say table footer. The table footer will contain one table row. And in that table row, again, we will have 3 columns. So table cell, let's say total. In the second table cell, we again will use our new component, money with currency, and we will pass the total balance. And the last table cell will be empty. Alright, the table footer appeared. As you can see, there is a total and there is a calculated total sum of the balance. But yet again, we need to push that sum to the right side. So we can do that right here. So class name and text right. Alright, so that is how you can create a very simple data table component using Shadcn UI table. But this particular data table is currently dealing only with bank accounts, and we want to have generic data table which we can use with any kind of data, either categories or transactions or whatever else we will have in this application. And to build more complex and generic table, we will be using React table from TanStack. This library is very powerful. It helps you with building more complex React tables. It has things like auto-managed internal state, global filters, aggregation, column visibility, column resizing, row selection, row expansion, pagination, sorting, multi-sort, and all of those different features. And that means that you won't need to build them from the very scratch yourself. So let's go ahead and install this library. Let's jump to installation and copy this npm install script. Open the project, terminal, npm install TanStack React table. Alright, it was installed. So now let's make this table generic. So instead of data of type bank account, let's say it will be type of T data. So we also need to provide the generic for the interface itself. The T data means that it can be anything like bank accounts, categories, or whatever the user chooses to pass to the data. We will also need columns prop, which will be column definitions of type column def from React table. This prop will allow the table to render any generic column definitions you want. So the type will be column def, and the generic will be tData and tValue. Let's also add tValue right here. And of course, the columns will be an array. Let's import column definitions from maybe not table core, but React table itself. So now we won't be needing bank accounts type anymore. Also, we need to update the definition of our component because it needs to accept the generic values, so tData and tValue. And the same goes right here. We can remove the total balance for now. Okay, so now we need to create a table object. So const table equals, and we will be using use React table hook. And we need to provide some options. So we need to pass the data, we need to pass the column definitions, and get core row model method, which we can import again from TanStack React table. And we need to call this function. We also need to take the columns from the props. So this one is for a basic table. Later on, when we will be adding a sorting, we will add some more models for this React table. Now it's time to update our rendering. So let's comment this one out. And now we need to take the headers from the table object. So let's say table dot get header groups, and we need to map through the table headers. So it will be header group. We can say return. We need a table row, similarly as we had previously. Since we are mapping, we need to provide a key. So the key will be header group dot ID. And inside of a table row, we need table heads. So let's go header group dot headers dot map. header, one more return, let's say table head. Again, we will need a key, so it will be header.id. Inside of it, we can say flex render, which can be imported from the TanStack React table. This function is basically a helper for rendering. So as you can see right here, if rendering headers, cells, or footers, use this custom function. And we can say header dot column def dot header, and the props will be header dot get context. Okay, so this will render our table header. We can pass whatever headers we want. So maybe let's create the column definitions for this bank accounts table so it will make more sense for you. So let's create a new file. Let's say bank accounts columns. And in here we will be exporting one function, which will be called get bank accounts columns. It will return an array. And this array will be of type column definition. And we need to provide a type of our data. So our type will be bank account. We can import that from our types. And now this array needs to contain objects inside of it. So let's say the first column of ours will be, as you remember, for account number. So let's say the first column will have a header of account number. And of course, here we need an array. So the first header will be account number. You can provide for the header just a simple string, or we can define the second header, which, as you remember, was for the balance, and we can pass function for it. So let's say header, it will be a function which will return a div. The text will be balance, and we also want to provide some class names, and we will say it will be text right. The last column, as you remember, was meant for the actions, but we don't want any header for it, so we can just say this column will have ID of actions. So if we would come back to the data table, you can see that the header will have only like one header group because we don't want grouped headers. We'll map through the one group, and then right here, that group will have headers. It will take an ID, it will take column definition and header. So basically this header is this stuff, either a function or just a simple string. Now we can define where this column will take the data for its cell. So it can be done using accessor key or a function. So we will just use accessor key and it will say account number. So basically, as you can see, an autocomplete shows what our bank accounts have in it. So we want account number, so let's say account number. And the footer will be total for the total balance. The second column, accessor key, will be balance. And the last cell does not need any accessor key because it will just display a row actions icon with edit and delete functionality, but more on that a bit later. So this right here would simply render our balance, but yet again, we want our balance to be formatted and we want to use our custom component money with currency for it. So we can do that by providing a cell function, and in here we can return a custom component which will be rendered in that particular cell. So let's say it will be div. Let's give again a class name of text right, and we will use our money with currency component. We need to pass an amount, and we can get this amount from the props of the cell function, because this contains a row, and we can take row.original, which basically is equal to our bank account, and let's pick a balance. Let's also define a footer because the first cell will have a total, and in here we want the total sum. So we can define a function for the footer. It will receive props, and the props is of type header context. So if we would look what it contains a column, header, table. We can take table, then we can say get row model. This row model contains rows by ID or flat rows. So let's just pick rows. And now we can reduce to calculate the total sum. So it will be sum and bank account. Actually, this will be bank account row. And now we can say sum plus bank account row dot original dot balance. And we will start from 0. So this right here will be our total balance. So let's say const total balance. And now we can return div with the class name TextWrite, and we will be rendering money with currency, and the amount will be total balance. We will implement this one a bit later. So basically right now we have a function which returns column definitions for our bank accounts table. So the first column will be account number, the header will say account number, footer total, it will be balance with the money with currency component inside of it, with the footer of total balance, and this one will be for actions, which we will implement a little bit later. So let's jump back to our data table. So we finished with our header. We can move ahead to the table body. This one we can comment for now, just for the reference. Inside of a table body, we will be doing very similarly as with the headers. We'll say table get row model. So in here we can do it very similarly as was with the headers. So let's say table get row model. This will contain all the rows of the table. So we can do map. The parameter will be row. And now we can render a table row. So table row. We will also need again key. So it will be row.id. So inside of a table row, we need to now render our table cells. So this can be done using row.getVisibleCells function. So get visible cells. And yet again, we need to map through them. So it will be cell, return. Let's return a table cell component. The key will be cell.id. And inside, we can use the same flex render function. We will pass cell.column definition .cell. So it basically takes the cell function from the column definition. So for the second cell, it was this one, money with currency. And for the first one, since it does not have a specific cell function defined here like that, it will just use accessor key and it will take account number from a bank account. And we also need to pass cell get context. All right, so this will render our rows. So we can remove this one now. But we can add one more additional thing. So for example, I would like to display a no results information if there is no rows or no bank accounts. So we can move that to a if statement. So let's say table.getRowModel rows length. And if it's not 0, we can return our table rows. But if it is 0, we can return a different thing. We would need table row, just a single one. We need a table cell. Let's say call span columns dot length. Let's also give some class name. Let's say h24 and text center. And let's say no results. Yep, So if we have any table rows, it will render them. Otherwise, we will see a no results found. And it's time for the table footer. So again, let's comment this one for the reference. We can say table get footer groups. It's very similar as with the headers. So we could even, I guess, take this one, copy it, paste it right here. And instead of get header groups, we will say get footer groups. Let's rename this one to footer group. So the key will be footer group.id, footer group, headers.map.footer. So this one again will be footer, footer, footer. I don't know why it's called headers, if it's like a footer groups, but it is how it is. If we can open that one, it's like the types are the same, I guess, that's why. Yep, so this one will render our footer. One additional thing what we can do is to add the call span right here. And let's say footer.callspan. All right, we can remove this one. So we can remove all the unneeded imports. Okay, so let's jump back to our bank accounts page, and we need to pass the column definitions now. So let's say columns, and we can get that from our getColumns function, but I also would like to use memo for it. So let's say const columns, use memo function. It will return our get bank accounts columns. And the dependency array will be empty for now. A little bit later we will be adding something here, so I will show you. So now we can pass the columns here. All right, maybe it's time to check how our application looks like. And something is off. We do have a balance, but our footer looks the same as a header. So let's check what's happening here. So to the footers. And yeah, we need not a header, but we need to take a footer from the column definition. What else we can change? It's from the table head to the table cell component. And now our data table is looking all right. So we have a generic table which accepts the column definitions and any type of data. Thank you for watching. Hit that subscribe button if you like this video, and in this one I will show you how to implement sorting for the data table.